Hi, I'm Carrie Kleber, and I'd like to welcome you to my Action Research Project, using digital storytelling to promote 21st century critical thinking skills at the middle school level. This is where the magic takes place. When I first started thinking about my action research project, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I started by kind of looking through some of the literature out there about technology and some of our options. And I started thinking about my multiple learning theory applications class where we talked about brain-based learning and Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory. And I wanted to make sure that I encompassed all of that in my action research project. And while I was looking, I saw a lot on 21st century learning skills, and one of the major ones was critical thinking. And I got to thinking about my middle school students, realizing they're not really very good at that. They kind of struggle with critical thinking, and I really wanted to tie that into my action research project. Then also when I'd been looking around, I noticed a lot on digital storytelling, and I thought, how much fun would that be to see if I could tie those together? And so I ultimately decided to sit down and look at, could digital storytelling promote 21st century critical thinking skills at the middle school level, because that's where I teach. And that is how I formulated my action research problem. Once I had set what my problem was going to be, what I was going to address, I needed to get in and start looking at what had already been done, what had already been written about, and write a literature review so I could know where I needed to take my study, my action research project. So one thing that really helped me with my literature review was my first month, which was media literacy and research methodologies, because it really set me up to understand how literature reviews worked. It also helped me write the very beginning of mine because I actually was able to pull from what I had previously written. So what I started by looking at was 21st century skills, and there was tons of literature on it. And what it was saying was, unless our kids learn how to work collaboratively, unless they learn how to think critically, they're not going to be successful adults, because that's what our business world demands from them. And so I knew critical thinking was a great element to include in my action research project, but I didn't really know how because they weren't real specific on how to teach it, just that it was necessary. So then I kind of looked at digital storytelling because I knew I wanted to tie that in. And already it was talking about how digital storytelling makes people think outside the box, because you have to kind of take your idea and then format it, transfer it, that knowledge, in a way so that it makes sense. And it was like, great, that's critical thinking. So this is looking really good. Didn't tie critical thinking and digital storytelling together necessarily, but you could see the link between them. And finally, I wanted to look at the middle school learner, because that is ultimately what this is about, is my middle school students. And it was talking about how they're at a perfect age to start thinking outside the box, and they're able to simulate and analyze information, unlike most elementary school students who just aren't developmentally ready. And so I was kind of set, because it was kind of pointing me right in the direction I wanted my action research project to go. Taking critical thinking, the 21st century learning skill, and using digital storytelling to kind of get them to start thinking critically, thinking, using that skill that they would need. And it's perfect because middle school learners are ready to start analyzing and thinking outside the box. So my literature study really confirmed that I was on the right track for my action research project. Once I had my literature review done and I knew what my problem was, it was time to start designing and developing Cycle 1. My Cycle 1, I decided to tie in with my science fiction unit that I typically teach during my language arts 7th grade year. And what I wanted to do was tie in the elements of a story with digital storytelling to get the kids to kind of transfer. So we started, and I had all my lessons planned out for the different elements of a story: plot, theme, mood, tone, those kinds of things, characters. And what I wanted them to do was, we went through and we learned them. And then I wanted them to be able to transfer them or use critical thinking skills and take those same story elements and apply them to a film. So once we got through and the kids knew those elements pretty well, I explained the project to them, what I wanted them to do, and we started with a script. And they had a script rubric and they knew what they had to write. And the funny thing was, they didn't really think they were writing, but they were. It was a great writing project for them. And so we wrote the script, then they had some time to kind of prepare some costumes, do a little backdrop work, which wasn't the best, but it was a start, and see how they could transfer, use digital storytelling to to learn critical thinking skills or use critical thinking skills or get them working that way. And when it was all done, I had a rubric that I graded them on, and I was very pleased with how they did. Two classes that really helped me during cycle one was my emergent technologies and a collaborative culture because it kind of introduced me to some Web 2.0 tools like JCut that allowed the kids to do their own editing, and also training and motivational development just helped me help the kids get comfortable in front of a camera because I had to get comfortable. It allowed me to help them get comfortable also. After completing cycle one, I kind of looked at what I had done, evaluated, and started planning for cycle two. Because cycle one went so well, I didn't have a whole lot of changes to cycle two. What I did decide to do was, in addition to critical thinking skills, the kids were already working in groups and they had to work collaboratively. So I just kind of added that as an extra bonus to my action research project. For cycle two, we focused on the mythology unit that we were doing, but I kept the idea of storytelling. They still needed to transfer story elements from their previous learning, but this time I wanted them to synthesize and kind of take a Greek or a Roman or one of the mythology stories and then kind of either modernize it so that they would have the same story, but it would be set in modern times. So kind of have to think about how you would do that, or take the same characters from the mythological stories, but write a new story using them, but keeping their characters the same, but writing a new story that hadn't already been written before. And that was kind of where I went with this second cycle, was getting the kids to kind of analyze and think more about it. What we did add in, we did learn about analyzing and synthesizing and how you would take different elements and move them. But to kind of help with the whole filmmaking process, I made sure to add in storyboarding, which I had forgotten to do with the first one. And we added some filming techniques, how to angles, or just, how to present yourself on film. And I was also very pleased with how cycle two went. During cycle two, the two courses that really helped me were the musical theory course because we did add music to all of our videos and it was really fun to kind of play with GarageBand. And then obviously filmmaking principles, it really helped me learn about angles and voice and just some other options you can have with filming. So what did I learn from all my action research work? Well, I found out that kids really, really enjoy digital storytelling. It was a lot of fun, which I learned is very important from month nine gaming. You got to let your kids have fun. I felt it was successful. I found that my kids grew in their storytelling and their critical thinking and their willingness to try new things. But most of all, what I was most proud of was that I had 100% participation. So, what does the future look like for me? First of all, I plan on continuing to do digital storytelling. It had great applications for not only critical thinking, but also for collaborative work, which is huge. I want to take what I learned in month six and month 10, learning management systems and digital media, and kind of create some lessons that are kind of a exposure to the lesson, to what I want the kids to learn for the digital storytelling. So I can have these already done and I can focus more on the filmmaking aspect of it and they can get the content, this kind of introductory content from a learning management system, which I think would be great because it was really exciting. And so for me, the future looks great. I just want to become a more experienced, more involved with technology teacher. I want to keep growing. I want to let my kids enjoy what they're doing. I want to make sure that they're prepared for the future. And I feel like with where I'm at with digital storytelling, I actually have a shot at that my kids are going to grow. And so I cannot wait to get my next year's class in. Year 2011, here we come.